History does have a habit of repeating itself. I learned this week that a former member of Congress, Congressman Charles C. Diggs Jr., was denied entry into apartheid South Africa in 1972. He was also the representative for the 13th Congressional District in Michigan. I was born and raised in the beautiful Detroit, where many of my African-American teachers taught me about the realities of oppression and justice and the need to speak up and take action.
So Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar hold a press conference yesterday. And in this press conference, they make a bunch of anti-Semitic statements. And the Democratic Party, again, backing them to the hilt, because this is the game in the Democratic Party. They will defend their radicals under nearly every circumstance without even asking as to whether their viewpoints are radical. Here's Rashida Tlaib comparing Israel to South Africa, despite the fact that Arabs and Muslims in Israel can vote, hold positions in the Knesset, are members of the Israeli Supreme Court, that Arabic is an official language in Israel, despite the fact that Arab Muslims in Israel are treated better than they are anywhere in the Arab Muslim world. Does not matter. Rashida Tlaib ripping on Israel, calling it an apartheid state.
Ben Shapiro just torched Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, and it was so brutal you might actually feel secondhand embarrassment. These two tried to lecture the world about justice, and Shapiro hit them with straight-up facts and logic. Grab your popcorn. This one's spicy. Before we jump in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because around here we deal in truth, not political fairy tales. Action.
Okay, calling Israel an apartheid state is obviously anti-Semitic because it is not an apartheid state, and it is, of course, singling out Israel in a way that Rashida Tlaib would never single out anybody else. And Ilhan Omar made this perfectly obvious. Right? She actually called for an end to aid to Israel. I can't imagine why Israel didn't let her in. She's literally calling for an end to aid to Israel and a boycott of the state of Israel. I can't imagine why they didn't allow her in to propagandize on behalf of Israel's destruction.
We give Israel more than $3 million in aid every year. This is predicated on their being an important ally in the region and the only democracy in the Middle East. We must be asking, as Israel's ally, the Netanyahu government stop the expansion of settlements on Palestinian land and ensure full rights for Palestinians if we are to give them aid.
Okay, like she wants to give Israel aid, and like they're an ally. Okay, let me be frank about this. Benjamin Netanyahu put a unilateral settlement freeze in place 2 years ago, and none of these people cared one iota about this. This is all a lie. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, they want Israel destroyed. And they're obvious about this, and they're so disingenuous about it as well. Again, the idea that she is a secret ally of Israel is insane. You have to be a nutty person to believe this sort of nonsense. And she tried her intersectional appeal. She tried to say, people keep calling me an anti-Semite. I don't know why, even though I just tried to campaign with a group that has pushed the blood libel. Sure, I don't know why people keep calling me an anti-Semite. You know what this is? This is all about Trump trying to separate Muslims from Jews. I would go more with it is you being a radical Jew hater. I got into a little bit of a spat with Ilhan Omar on Twitter yesterday, because the folks at Media Matters doing their usual solid work took me out of context on something. I tweeted about it. Ilhan Omar then tweeted that I was both a fool and hateful, to which I tweeted back, well, I must have hypnotized the world using my Benjamins. But in any case, Ilhan Omar tries this intersectional approach where she's not an anti-Semite. It's just the Trump administration trying to separate off the Jews and the Muslims. This is insanity.
We know Donald Trump would love nothing more than to use this issue to pit Muslims and Jewish Americans against each other. The Muslim community and the Jewish community are being othered and made into the boogeyman by this administration. But as we will hear today, people of all different faiths are coming together to speak up against the status quo in the region. I'm grateful for the solidarity shown by
This is the myth that Ilhan Omar and the Democratic Party tell themselves. The myth they tell themselves is that there is such a thing as an intersectional coalition, and they're all on each other's side, and they all oppose Trump, and that's what will hold them together. In the end, that coalition will fall apart. It will break apart on the shoals of its own identity politics. And the fact is this: Ilhan Omar, she don't like the Jews very much, and it is obvious from all of her behavior and everything that she says that this is the case. And then she brings in token Jews from Jewish Voice for Peace, which is a pathetic anti-Israel, anti-Jewish organization. And then she talks about how pro-Jewish, it's insanity. But the idea is that hatred of Trump will hold that coalition together. It will until it doesn't. It will until it doesn't. And it's one of the reasons why it is incumbent on President Trump to actually, as president, try and embolden the decent people still left in the Democratic Party, and there are many of them, to stand up against the hatred inside their own party. It's funny, I hear from Democrats all the time, why won't Republicans denounce people inside their own party who say bad things? If you've ever listened to this show, you know that I do it on a regular basis. You know that I've denounced people up to and including President Trump repeatedly for things that they have said. You know that I maxed out to Kevin Feenstra, Steve King's opponent in Iowa, right, out of my own pocket. And I've encouraged Kevin Feenstra's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, in large part because I have had Kevin Feenstra on my show, because I think that Steve King needs to be ousted from Congress. People in the Republican Party are doing a much better job of standing up to people inside their own party. Democrats are rallying around Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. They're not even asking the question, oh, weird that they would be rallying with groups that want the destruction of the state of Israel and openly celebrate terrorism. Very weird, very odd. We mustn't pay attention to it because, after all, the heart and soul, the Schadenfreude, the zeitgeist, not Schadenfreude, the zeitgeist of the time suggests that Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib are in the ascendancy. And I don't think it's in the long-term or even medium-term interests of the country for the Democrats to rally around their worst members any more than I think Democrats should root for Republicans to rally around their worst members so that they can nutpick and then use the worst Republicans in order to suggest that that is the entire Republican Party.
All right, let's break it down. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar held this big emotional press conference. You know, the usual routine where they went after Israel and somehow made themselves the victims. And of course, the Democratic Party in classic fashion rushed to defend them like they just won Nobel Prizes for selective outrage. Then comes Ben Shapiro, cool, calm, and loaded with receipts. He absolutely ripped Clay for calling Israel an apartheid state. Shapiro pointed out what any sane person already knows. Arabs and Muslims in Israel vote, run for office, and even serve in the Israeli Supreme Court. Some apright, huh? But it didn't stop there. Clay compared Israel to South Africa, which is ridiculous. Israel is literally the only democracy in the Middle East, a place where women drive, protest, and actually get to vote, unlike in most of the country, CLA, and Omar never seemed to criticize. And then Ilhan Omar decided to jump in with her greatest hits, calling for an end to U.S. aid to Israel and pretending she's just being fair. Shapiro clapped back hard, reminding everyone that Netanyahu already froze settlements years ago and the squad didn't care one bit. Translation: the issue isn't settlements, it's Israel existing at all. At one point, Omar even blamed Trump for dividing Muslims and Jews. Shapiro roasted that claim like it was a bad take on ex-Twitter. He basically said, "Lady, maybe people think you're anti-Semitic because you keep saying anti-Semitic things." Shapiro then dismantled the entire myth of intersectional solidarity. He said this fantasy alliance between radicals built on hating Trump will eventually self-destruct because when everyone's a victim, nobody's accountable. And his closing point, pure fire. Shapiro called out Democrats for defending extremists while demanding Republicans denounce their radicals. He reminded everyone he's done exactly that, even calling out people on his own side. Meanwhile, Democrats can't seem to find the backbone to check their own hate-filled squad members. So, yeah, Shapiro didn't just respond. He boldly slammed their entire argument with evidence, with facts, and with that trademark Shapiro speed that makes liberals start blinking in Morse code.